And once you have that set up in your company, you're in a good place. Now, we created the growth team at the end of 2007, beginning of 2008, because Facebook stopped growing. And there's a number of sort of fairly public stories about that. Chimoth's talked about it, Zuck's talked about it, Cheryl has. And one of the things we did when we set it up was understand what was that moment where you went, okay, I get it, I love Facebook. And for us, it was the moment when you found your friends. And we had this huge discussion internally because we saw a strong correlation between number of friends and percent active. And there was this huge conversation internally about whether it was causal or whether it was correlated. And again, the most valuable thing we did was very, very simple. And it was Zuck again, which is we had this huge fight going on between sort of data science, data analytics, engineering, products, marketing, and couldn't get to a decision and couldn't do anything. And Mark simplified down and said, get everyone to 10 friends in 14 days. And when we took on that problem, we significantly moved by a double-digit percentage the number of people who got to 10 friends in 14 days and retention. And so we clearly moved the numbers we cared the most about, but we've been arguing tremendously about whether even to move that number first. And I love the show House. Do you guys like the show House? It may be because there's a British person in it. But I love the show House, and he's got this whole thing, test by treating. Well, it turns out making that change happen was the thing that told us whether the change mattered. When we broke people you may know and growth went negative, we finally realized people you may know really mattered for Facebook's growth. And fine, every social site does it now, LinkedIn, Twitter. Keith has some excellent stories about growth at LinkedIn. He really knows this stuff very well. He's super humble. But cutting the Gordian knot and making the decision to move forward was the most valuable thing that Mark did for the growth team, because it took the shackles off us and allowed us to just say, fine, we're going to get people connected to their friends. And that was the magic moment for Facebook. The magic moment for eBay is when you find that one item that you're looking for that you couldn't find on any other site. A collectible was what it was really about in my day, but there was also cars, which was fascinating. People would find that car that they were looking that was perfect, that they couldn't get from the showroom anymore or whatever. And so people's eyes would light up and they'd be retained. And we actually shifted when I was at eBay from landing paid search clicks on the registration form to landing them on the search results form, because that moment that they saw the item they were looking for made them much more likely to be retained when they signed up. So even though we got net less acquisitions and less confirmations, we got net more active users and more revenue by landing marketing on search results pages rather than the registration form. Again, everywhere I have been involved in advising or working, there is a magic moment. There is a thing about your product that people love and their eyes light up. And you often find that qualitatively, and then you can back it up with correlations in the data. And it's very hard to prove causally, especially when you're very small and don't have a lot of data. And people will argue and argue and argue about it. And the best way to find out if they're right is break it or make it move up tremendously, and then see what happens. So I want to give a few examples of tactics too, and then hopefully I will leave a little bit more time for questions, or Keith can kick me off the stage and get you guys to your coffee quicker. But I want to talk about tactics that really matter. But first, to pause and go over. Retention, product market fit is the most important thing for growth. The way to measure that is having solid retention. And that's the single most important thing that you need to take away from today. You can figure out the retention that matters for your market by looking at everyone else. And when you organize for growth, growth is the CEO's problem for a very, very, very long time, far further than most people think it's their problem. And if the CEO shows a clear North Star that everyone can align behind, you will have a company that drives you towards your metrics. So tactics. Marketing is a dirty word in the Valley. That's why there are now growth teams. I'm not a growth person, I'm an online marketer. I learned how to do online marketing at eBay in 2004, and that was an incredible team. There's Mike Osborne, who does online marketing at Uber right now. There's John Correll, who's president of Neiman Marcus, both the stores and the offline. Matt Madrigal, CTO of Fanatics. Chris Orton, CEO of Fanatics. There's just this amazing, Matt Ackley, CMO of Marin Software. There's this amazing group of people who blew out of the eBay online marketing team at that side, and none of us really have the same title anymore because we're kind of embarrassed. It says marketing. But in the end, growth is marketing. And so many computer scientists, product managers think this is the way the world works. You build this better product, And remember, like a 10% change in efficiency of something or whatever can be completely fundamentally game-changing in any market. You build this fundamentally better product, and then don't tell anyone about it and expect it to grow. Turns out that doesn't happen. My favorite example from the last year across all my departments, so I run analytics, online marketing, and internationalization for Facebook, and I recently took on internationalization. And India is incredibly important to Facebook's growth. And Hindi, that says Hindi, I didn't know that either. Hindi is the 4th largest language on earth. And we were at this stage where Hindi was growing very, 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 very slowly. And those are super low numbers. I took off the y-axis because I couldn't get permission to give the numbers out. But we were growing very, very, very slowly on Hindi. And then you see there's a little bump. And that bump is when we ran a banner ad inside Facebook and said, do you want to use Facebook in Hindi? So we got a little bump there. But that didn't matter. And then you see the massive angle change in that graph, where it takes off up and to the right. This is going to sound really obvious and really stupid. Most people in the developing world use crappy phones. Like they use feature phones or they use low-end Android. Those phones typically ship with English as their default locale. So we use the default locale to determine which locale we put as the default on the site, English US. We then use the next most popular languages in the country. Next most popular language after US English in India is British English. Jolly good. So we put that second. And then the third one up there is Bengali. I have no idea why Bengali grew so well for us. All the numbers were very low, so it didn't really matter. So we have support for 12 languages professionally translated in India. And we were showing English, English, Bengali, and a more button in English and wondering why Hindi wasn't growing. So if you look at India and decompose it, right, it's got different states that have different languages. Punjab, Punjabi, right? West Bengal, Bengali. Down at the bottom left, you've got Tamil and that stuff. So there's this area called the Hindi Crescent. And so by state, we gave a different default language into second position. And that is what happened with that massive change in trajectory of growth that has kept going. And we've quadrupled the number of Hindi users in a year, and it's still going up and to the right today. And what we did was we looked at the data on who was visiting the site, we did qualitative analysis to see what was going on, we built the translations with the Hindi team, and then we changed the site with on-site merchandising. Very, very simple stuff, massive change in the growth curve, and I've seen this over and over again. We do donations on the site. Just removing 2 steps from the conversion flow actually massively changes the conversion rate of the flow, where you can collapse steps into each other. The registration form on the homepage of Facebook is something that Naomi, who's my closest partner in crime, and she's absolutely incredible. She's our VP of product on growth, and she now runs engineering as well. She's brilliant. We took the registration form on Facebook, sounds obvious to you guys now, and we had it 1 click away from the homepage. We embedded it on the homepage. It was 4 pages long. We dropped it to 7 fields long, and we saw a massive change in conversion rate. The contact importer for Facebook to help people find friends, right? We didn't link to it anywhere on the site. We had optimized the flow tremendously well, and there was no link on the homepage to help you find your friends. We put it in the new user experience flow, and we linked to it from the homepage. This stuff is incredibly obvious, but every one of those was a meaningful win for Facebook's growth. When you have a clear North Star as a company, when the CEO is super clear about where you're trying to go to, when you know what the magic moment is that you want your users to get to as quickly as possible, you take the shackles off the team and you allow them to drive towards what matters most. So think about product market fit as the number one thing that matters for growth. Set a North Star for your company, and then let the team do their work. Should I take some questions now?
Let's take 1 or 2 questions. Yeah, there's one in the back.
Hi, I wanted to ask, if someone came to Facebook and didn't like it and left, what would you do to gain those users?
So I think there's a big question about why people leave. And generally, folks over-index on the idea that people don't like Facebook or don't like the product or whatever and leave. Usually what happens is they don't actually see the value. They don't get to the point at which they see the value. And so we get people signed up, and then what we want to happen is we want other people to add them as friends. Usually everyone goes through a dip. You guys look back through your timeline and look what happened for your first year on Facebook. All you did was add friends. We have a product called On This Day, www.facebook.com/onthisday is the easiest way to find it. And if you look on there, every day on my oldest, at least, like field for my usage of Facebook, all we have is friendversaries. These are the people you added as friends on that day. And so what truly happens is people come and they go away for a very limited set of reasons. One, we didn't show them their friends. Well, great. Best thing we can do is we have their phone number or their email address, get their friends to use Find Friends on iOS or Android or whatever, and then send friend requests to those people so we can notify them. And then they come back and then they see more and more friends. They get a fuller and fuller newsfeed and they have a great experience. Two, we didn't confirm a credential, or in a lot of countries we can't send SMS because we have to pay for SMS, so we can't notify them when these things happen. That's a slower ramp-up curve. So often it's actually notifying them that there's an opportunity there. But that's really what actually the main reason that people don't ramp up on Facebook. And realistically, most of leaving Facebook is not leaving, it's not ramping up. And so what we do is optimize on getting them to the magic moment and they're on the site. If they're not on the site, get someone else to send them a friend request, notify them of that. When they come back, get them more friends. And it's very focused, and we've stayed that way for 8 years, and it's really worked. Now, it's hard. On a feature phone in India, that is a lot of work, but it's still the most important thing.
Next question.
Oh, there's one.
There's a few, actually.
Have you ever changed your North Star during the course of Facebook?
MAP to DAP. We want people to come back daily now. That's it.
Okay.
Ethan, over there.
So today people have hundreds.
There's a mic for you.
Oh, sorry. Today people have hundreds of Facebook friends, but the younger generation is definitely using it less. So something must have changed in the early calculus of if you have more friends, you use the product more.
So if you listen to what I said if you have friends, you will come back to Facebook. And there are diminishing return curves on anything, right? When we were doing paid search, the more money you spent in a different day, the less incremental return you get for it. So your 500th friend is less valuable for you than your first friend, right? Nothing in your newsfeed to 500 people's worth of stories to 501 people's worth of stories is not as important. For the growth team, where we've actually talked about this at our earnings call, like fundamentally on growth, we're doing fine with young people. So for the growth team, we don't focus on that area. What we're focused on is actually getting more active users, and that means focusing on the developing world. So internet.org is a growth team initiative. Messaging is a growth team initiative, making sure that we can get people connected on feature phones using the Facebook for Every Phone product that was Snap2 acquired out of Israel over 4 years ago now and has more than 100 million active users last time we announced the numbers. Those are where the growth team is focused. Our job is to get people on Facebook monthly and daily, and then there is an engagement team to deepen their engagement. And so we have a clear division of resources there.
Time for one more question.
So if your metric is DAP, how do you reconcile quality? Like people with 10 accounts, 20 accounts, does that not bother you? Because that would seem to throw off the metric a lot.
We actually track duplicate accounts and fake accounts very closely, and we release those numbers with our earnings call to our best of our knowledge. And so we put those numbers out there, and we try and keep them at a steady level. But we don't go on a complete, hunt to take out every single fake account. There are like 3 kinds: duplicate, your dog, and malicious. And the malicious ones we go after really hard with our site integrity team. And the other ones we just report internally and externally how many we think there are. And we really focus on the positive and how do we grow more users. And we make sure the malicious and spammy stuff is out of the site because that reduces quality of experience and makes people churn if they have a bad experience. But 90% of our focus is on growing the good accounts, and then we just monitor what fake is on the site, report it, understand it, make sure it doesn't blow out proportion, but don't spend too much time on the negative, spend all our time on the positive. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Alex.